fuel self-sufficiency remains a pipe dream for the government for decades. Though it's not a question of where and how much the deposit is, it is a question of when it will be fully materialized. According to the data gathered and reported by China's Ministry of Geology and Mineral Resources, and also confirmed by U.S. Geological Survey, the oil deposits in the Spratly Island alone could reach 17.1 billion barrels. With the recent additional discovery of oil reserves in the Celebes Sea, particularly within the administrative area of Sulu and the rest of the country, the value of hydrocarbon deposits in the country could be more than $26.3 trillion, more than the 13 billion barrels of oil deposits of Kuwait, one of the world's top oil producers. This is more than enough to free the country from poverty.
99% of people are using this super magical household cleaner. Developed with a German patent,
when commercial production began, the Philippines would not have to import expensive oil. In fact, the country would be an exporter of oil products and simultaneously provide an answer to the unabated rise of gasoline prices when the supply chain is disrupted. In addition, it will have a huge impact on the Philippines economy. According to the Philippine Statistics Authority, the share of the oil industry, particularly non-renewable resources, been only 0.19% of the gross domestic product, GDP, for the last 20 years. This industry is also one of the most significant contributors to manufacturing costs. Once commercial production started, granting that the surveys are accurate, it could potentially provide a significant portion of the Philippines' gross domestic product. In comparison to Indonesia, the region's biggest oil producer with a production of about 743,000 barrels per day in 2020, contributed at least $140 billion annually, or about 12% of its economy. If the Philippines can produce at least the same level or a bit higher than Indonesia, the country's oil and gas industry can contribute at least $150 billion or more annually to the country's economy, making the Philippines the second biggest economy in the region, surpassing Thailand with a GDP nominal of $505.9 billion. This will also enhance the competitive edge of the country in terms of manufacturing goods. With a lower production cost, the Philippines can now compete with Vietnam and Indonesia, the region's cheapest producer of goods, making the country an ideal alternative location for manufacturing hubs in Asia, thus increasing the overall direct foreign investment in the country. In addition, transportation costs and other basic commodity prices will be now more economical. With locally produced oil means no more import cost, making petroleum products cheaper. In effect, transportation and other logistics will be cheaper, lowering the cost of basic commodities such as agricultural and other processed products. When commodity prices are low, and even the household income remains unchanged, it means higher disposable income for the family. In other words, a household's regular income would afford more amount of goods. With these, inflation in the country will remain low. Currently, a 10% rise in oil prices could add 0.4 percentage points to Philippine inflation. To add, the Central Bank of the Philippines also sees the high oil prices to drive inflation as high as between 2% to 6%. This situation will be diluted when the Philippines will produce domestic petroleum products. Overall, these will enhance the private domestic consumption of Filipinos, which remains the main driver of the economy, accounting for 70% of the country's economy.
High cost of the oil.
In the long run, sustained oil price hikes can slow down the growth of an economy. Like an ordinary household, the Philippine economy, in general, is also up for a rough ride. Production, transportation, and manufacturing costs are also driven up by high oil prices. While consumers are still not shouldering these costs, producers cannot cushion them for long. As a result, these will be passed down to the consumers, increasing the overall prices of goods and services, and causing inflation. The impact of increasing oil prices does not limit to an economic slowdown and high inflation, it will also affect investments. With an expected slowdown of economic growth and
Yes.
rising production costs, companies also adjust their revenue expectations. The significance of producing domestic petroleum products
domestic
has a
oil.
material effect on the overall economy. The oil and gas industry will only not support the creation of a domestic job, but most importantly provides lower energy costs for
Yeah.
consumers and ensures the energy security of the country. The affordability and accessibility of domestically produced oil and
Yeah.
gas are infusing hundreds of billions of dollars into new Philippines manufacturing, supporting the development of new jobs, infrastructure, and economic opportunity in communities throughout the country. Lower energy costs, driven by more massive oil and gas supply, support private sector investment in the country, and further by economic growth. The Philippines Department of Energy has outlined an overly ambitious twofold agenda of attaining energy security and implementing power market reforms. By 2040, the Philippine oil and gas sector intends to increase reserves and production of local oil, gas, and coal. Improve downstream oil industry policies for the continuous supply of high-quality and quantity petroleum products, and establish an investment-driven natural gas industry in the Philippines. The Philippines assumes that the population will increase from 110 million in 2020 to 148 million in 2040. Such plans are critical as the country faces a loss of almost 30% of its fuel supply source, which will impact approximately 3,000 megawatts of generation in 2024 when the Malampaya natural gas fields are expected to be depleted. The nation needs to find a new source of energy to compensate for this loss as it seeks to maintain its economic growth and support the country's infrastructure boom.
Economic growth.
The country has proven the presence of commercial quantities of hydrocarbons in its territory, both onshore and offshore. The industry, however, is underexplored and underfunded due to some security concerns. Since the 1970s, only a few wells had been drilled, supplying a small chunk of the domestic oil and gas demand for its more than 110 million inhabitants. Total domestic production of petroleum and other liquids was 37,000 barrels per day, compared to the country's daily consumption of 474,000 barrels according to the Department of Energy. Some of the oil and gas are found in the disputed Spratly chain of islands, where active oil fields are now supplying the rest of the country. Other prospective deposits are believed to be found inland and offshore waters, including those in the northern province of Cagayan, Ragay Gulf in Bicol, offshore Mindoro, the New Palawan Block, northern Cebu, and the Cotabato Basin. These are the present and prospective oil fields in the country, as the Philippines is seeking to revive its moribund upstream oil industry.
Say goodbye to dull and damaged auto parts. Give your car a makeover with our restoration coatings and protect it from harsh UV rays, weather damage, and everyday
industry. The Malampaya oil and gas oil field, 50 kilometers west of Palawan Island, has produced a total of 1.9 trillion standard cubic feet of gas as of the end of 2017 and 75 million barrels of natural gas liquids. It supplies 5 power plants in Luzon, the country's largest island, with a combined capacity of 3,200 megawatts. Cadlao's oil field estimated recoverable volumes of 6.2 million barrels of oil are unlikely to have a huge impact on local supply. But it will help minimize the import of petroleum products. Oil production could start by 2024. In 2018, an estimated 27.9 million barrels of inland oil was discovered in Alegria, Cebu by the Department of Energy and service contractor China International Mining Petroleum Company Limited, with an estimated 3.4 million barrels of recoverable oil. An estimated 9.4 billion cubic feet of natural gas reserves were found, with up to 6.6 billion cubic feet of recoverable gas, about 70% of the total estimated gas reserves. The Ligwasan Marsh, which covers 2,200 hectares straddling the provinces of Cotabato, Maguindanao, and Sultan Kudarat, is estimated to hold 3.4 trillion cubic feet of natural gas and 4.8 billion barrels of crude oil.
Oil pa.
Earlier this year, the Department of Energy has given the green light to SK Ligwasan Oil and Gas Corporation, a Mindanao-based exploration firm, to develop Area 9 of the Cotabato Basin. The Benham Rise is located off the coast of Aurora Province, the northernmost part of the Philippines. Which was suspected to have a rich deposit of petroleum, was found that no potential oil reserved. But a rich source
Alegria,
of minerals
Cebu.
and other aquatic resources,
Alegria?
like gas hydrates or
Ano?
methane. Other potentially huge fields
Imagine.
had been earmarked within the country's undisputed
Sekreto
territories,
diyan.
such as the Sulu Sea
Ano
and
ang
parts of the
nabibigyan?
Celebes Sea, in the vast seas off the southern Philippines.